show. I'd now love to introduce Lisa Sprinkles, who is going to introduce the topic and the speakers for the rest of the series. Here you go, Lisa.
Great, thank you so much. We are so excited to be here and partnering together with you. Thanks to Amanda especially for setting this up and getting started. Just a little bit about myself. I've been at Oracle about 10 years. I work as an executive assistant in the application service excellence team, which supports support and customer success. We're excited. We've got 3 people ready to go, and I'm going to start off with introducing Erin Avery. Erin has been at Oracle as a customer success specialist for 7 years. And prior to Oracle, she was at ADP as a regional sales executive for 11 years. For clients, Oracle, internal employees, leadership, and herself, family, her focus is successful outcomes. Erin spends much of her days focused on how she can be a positive influence for others, building strategies, and succeeded and being passionate for her work and personal outcomes. Okay, Erin, over to you.
Hi there. Thanks everyone for taking the time out of your busy day to join us today at the Oracle team. And we're really excited to share with you some of our career journeys, if you will, and how it relates back to networking and potentially how we can share some insights for you. So if we could kind of jump right into things, Lisa, that would be great. We could go right to the next slide. Perfect. All right, so if we think about networking, we've kind of broken it down into the core values, if you will. There's 4 that we'd really like for you to think about as you're starting your journey in networking. And honestly, this is really a career-long thing that happens throughout your career. It's not always just in the beginning, but sometimes people are looking to make changes in their career or advancements. So these are really all inclusive and apply to regardless where you are in your individual journey. So if we look at learning and growth and common interest, valuable giving, and higher purpose. So if we start with the learning and growth, if you think about every event that you attend and every book that you read, every podcast that you listen to, regardless of what the channel is that you're experiencing at the time, I want you to focus on having one thing, just one thing that you pull away from that. And sometimes in our career path, training becomes something that you do on a regular basis, or conventions or conferences that you go to. And sometimes it may seem a little repetitive, or I've done that before. And, I always encourage people to just think of one thing that's positive that you can pull away from that and apply. And basically, I think that you'll have a much more positive experience, and you'll be able to draw on that wisdom as you kind of go through your journey as well. Common interests, if you think to yourself, common interests that you may have with people that you meet at an event, people that live in your community, people that are part of your individual network, having that common interest layered in makes it seem so much more fun, right? So sometimes we get really nervous. Sometimes you don't know what to say. But if you can think about whether it's a volunteering program that you have, or you've both worked at the same place in the past, or maybe your kids go to school together, just that one common thread can sometimes make all the difference in your interactions with people. Valuable giving, I always try to focus on having 1 or 2 things in my back pocket when I go to a convention or any kind of a meeting, so that there's something that I can offer in terms of my experience that is considered of value to the people that I'm speaking with or talking and interacting with. So I always encourage you to have those 1 or 2 things in your back pocket when you go to any event or engage with someone in conversation for networking. And then a higher purpose, right? So when we think about networking again is something that happens throughout the course of your career, every day, every week, all your interactions, whether you're on the clock for work or not. It's something that you can't expect instantaneous results. And it's something that if you really think about having that where you want to be able to pull in your own experience, and the rewarding, satisfying relationships that you build are really what you're going after. It's not necessarily finding a job or a new opportunity today. It could be something that comes to you 6 months, 18 months down the road from now. So next slide, Lisa. Okay, so a couple of fun facts here on the next 2 slides that we're gonna jump into. So one, 83% of companies cite that their opportunities are actually filled by internal candidates. So this may seem a little daunting if you're someone who's actively seeking a career opportunity or trying to get into a company or a corporation where you're looking at this statistic and you're thinking, wow, where's the opportunity for me? So a couple of things. When we think about building your internal network, right? Some of us may already be employed at a company and we're looking to advance our career. So if you think about having a conversation that's more informal with someone who might be a supervisor or manager and asking them to share their career journey with you. So it may really shine some light and some insights on how they were able to advance, what doors opened up for them as a result of their networking and their interactions with other people. So that's just one way that you could go about it. Job shadowing is also something that companies offer as an opportunity for you to do what we would call even a ride along, or, you know, I'm going to shadow you throughout the course of your day. I'm going to listen in on some of your meetings just to be a fly on the wall, and I can understand how you go about the tasks of what it is that you do all day. So it's important, number one, because sometimes we get, you know, enamored with a job that we think is going to be the perfect job for us. But once you do job shadowing, you may be thinking to yourself, this is not anything like what I thought it was, and it's not going to be for me. So I think it's important for everyone to at least experience that when you're thinking about career advancement. The next one, asking for review of your resume, is really important. Sometimes we can look at the same sheet of paper, the same computer screen, and think everything's a-okay. And just having a second or third set of eyes on it, you can sometimes come away with some simple things that might be, you know, format and presenting it in the best light, so that the reader on the other end, the recruiter, is able to get a better feel for who you are. And certainly the simple things like grammar and spelling, we want to make sure that those are all buttoned up and intact. So the next one is volunteering. Volunteering is a great opportunity for you within your own community. And I think most people, if you think about businesses that are run locally and stores and any type of corporation, most of the owners are truly believing that volunteering builds a solid foundation within their community. And most of those business owners are linked to or tied to some sort of cause where they give back in their community. So by volunteering, what you'll find most frequently is that it'll open up some doors for you just by sharing Saturday morning or a Sunday afternoon in doing something positive for the community. And you'd be surprised who you really meet at some of these events. Mentoring is the next one. So mentoring, I view as something that happens throughout the course of your journey individually. When you start out in your career, you're going to want to seek out people of positive influence and make sure that, oh, I think I lost your screen there. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Can everyone else still see Lisa's slide?
Yes, the slides are still visible.
Okay, great. So mentoring is something that also is something that happens throughout the course of your career, whether you're seeking out positive influence from others. And as you grow your career, you're going to want to make sure that you make time in your busy day to always give back and continue to mentor with people, and also offer your experiences likewise. And next slide, Lisa. Okay, so how to meet 200 new contacts. So this is something that may seem like a monumental task, right? So when we think about networking and building your network of people, we think 200 people would be amazing, right? But if you think about just the one individual that you meet at a volunteering event or someone that you connect with on LinkedIn, average statistic is that those people have 200 new contacts that would be someone that you could look through their networking, look through their group of people and find some similarities there and potentially reach out to new people. So we think about social platforms. Where do people, look to grow their network? So we think about LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Meetup. These are just to name a few. So I really encourage everyone to really build upon the stepping stones for each one of those platforms. Thinking about hobbies, and we talked about, common interest and how important that is. If you think about where people have gone to school, if you think their kids themselves, where they go to school, maybe you played basketball as, part of your schooling in the past, or you like to ski, whatever it is. If you kind of rekindle some of those interests, I think that you'll find that you're able to have conversations and meet people just in general, and have ways where you can reach out and have that common bond in the beginning when you start to build your relationships. And then community interest, we talked about the importance of volunteering. Some events that happen, Earth Day, recycling, every community has those where they bring in old technologies and they're always looking for, maybe it's a roundup of old paint in your community or whatever it might be. But some of those events are really fun and exciting right now with the holidays coming up. I know that every community is always looking for, volunteers as well. And then career fairs. Obviously we have career fairs that if you think of any community, and sometimes they might be a little sparse right now, or they might be doing them through Zoom, but these are always important events throughout your career to go ahead and make sure that you're taking a part in those. And next slide, Lisa. Okay, so the do's and don'ts of networking, broken down here just into two, simple columns and rule of thumb just to breeze over here. Making sure that you're always doing your homework before you go to an event, right? So the reason why that's important is if you're going to a career fair, take the time to go ahead and investigate the companies that are going to be present at the career fair. Go ahead and Google them, get on their website, find out who their board of directors are, what their mission statement is. And if you find yourself face to face with one of the recruiters, you're really going to stand out in that person's mind if you're able to offer some intelligent insight on their company and asking them some meaningful questions. So it's a good way for you to prep yourself before you go into any interactive events. And then creating and practicing an elevator pitch of yourself, who it is that you are, what your objectives are, what your experience is, and what value you bring to the table. So an elevator pitch may be a new concept for some of the folks on the line. So there is a resource slide where we'll share some samples of that, and you can go ahead and visit those sites also, and it'll teach you the importance of an elevator pitch and how to go about creating one for yourself. Staying in touch moving forward, making sure that every time you go to an event, don't just come back with a briefcase or a pocket full of business cards, and then never revisit it. It's really important. If you're going to take the time, make sure that you stay in touch with those folks that you felt like you had a meaningful connection with. And then being a good listener, I always use the 80-20 rule, trying to be respectful of other people's time, where you know, you're 80% listening, and then 20% of your interaction should be with offering feedback or asking questions. And then if you're someone who's really nervous about going to events, one thing that I recommend is to, you know, what we say, the wingman or the wingwoman, if you will, bring someone who's a friend, someone who, you know, is going to make it fun for you and, you know, kind of bring down that level of nervousness. So I think that that's really important too. And then sending follow-up thank you notes and emails is always good practice. And then the don'ts, never ask for a job right up front. It's really not the purpose of being at a job fair. It's something that will happen as a result of your networking. And again, not expecting those results to happen immediate today. And then, you know, people are not going to just automatically come up and talk to you. So you have to be able to interact and think of those things that we discussed with doing your homework ahead of time and going over introducing yourself. It may be hard at first, but then not being intimidated by, you know, the name that's on their name tag or their title. You know, those people are at those events also because they're looking to pull something for their own personal journey as well. So it's important for you to remember that it's a constant give and take when we think about networking, and never be over the top or over embellishing, you know, your experience or flattery for the other person. People know kind of when they're getting snowed. So you want to just be careful of that. And, you know, most importantly, business cards are usually meant as a closing gesture to stay in touch, but you never want to open up your conversation with a business card. And then next slide, Lisa. Okay, so these are kind of the resources that are actual links that you'll be provided that you can go ahead and utilize these on career networking portal through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is also a great resource. They have many different learning module programs. I've taken several myself, even recently. And again, always pull away one or two things from those courses. And then LinkedIn groups, you know, following specific groups, how to organize yourself, how to network. I think that that's really important too, because as we talk about all those different avenues, whether it's volunteering, career fairs, your alumni, you want to be able to separate those networking groups so that, you know, you're keeping contact with them all on a regular basis, but you'll find as your network grows, it's easier for you to manage as well. And then some interesting ones here on YouTube, career networking, and Instagram is also a great channel for folks that are more the creative arts and businesses and things like that. And then Indeed and Meetup. And next slide, Lisa. Okay, so next we have up, again, as promised, the elevator pitch and some personal branding, building your own personal brand. This is really an interesting one because it goes on to speak about this from the alphabet standpoint, like every letter represents one portion of building your personal brand. So I really encourage you guys to go ahead and take a look at that as well. So again, all these resources will be provided to you, and I am going to introduce Steve Romagna next, who's our next speaker. And Steve is a customer success director here at Oracle. He's spent most of his time at Oracle in the sales and customer success areas of business. His current focus is on ensuring that our customer success team members have the necessary tools and training to effectively deliver our services, resulting in positive business outcomes for our customers. So with that, Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Erin. Appreciate the opportunity to participate here. My focus for today is really on the skills that are necessary to be effective at networking. Before we even get there, I thought it'd be helpful if we just kind of lay some of the groundwork about, the approach and just some guiding thoughts, and then we'll get into the skills. Kind of piggybacking off of some of the messaging that Erin just provided, networking is about relationships and building relationships. That is really the core component of what we're trying to achieve through networking. It's not about selling yourself. There's going to be the opportunity, hopefully, to get in front of the right company and the right individual where you'll have that opportunity. But networking is, again, focus on the relationships and using that to drive opportunities for yourself. The second key element of networking is it's all about building rapport, finding common ground with people. Again, this is a common theme. And this one is, for me personally, as Erin mentioned in my background, at Oracle, I was part of our sales organization for many years. And one of the things that I wanted to do was pursue a career change. And that was probably, I'd say, about 5-6 years back. I had an opportunity, in my prior role where I was meeting large groups of Oracle employees. And so it really gave me the opportunity to network. And one of the areas that I was interested in was this kind of evolving area called customer success. And so, when I was doing my sales events and I had an opportunity, I was really leveraging that, especially with the individuals who were part of that organization. And specifically, I developed some very good relationships, one with a local contact of mine who actually became a future manager of mine. So, networking is not always an immediate proposition to a job opportunity, but really, focusing on relationships, building rapport, this can really open the door for where you want to get to. Couple other key elements of networking is, these should be genuine connections. Networking is really, it's a two-way street. As part of their connection, your network contacts are going to look to you as well to help them. And so, having that sense of a genuine connection really makes that a much easier task. And then, my last point here is, and I agree wholeheartedly with what Erin was mentioning was, 200 contacts, right? The more contacts and the more relationships we have, obviously, the better opportunities we have. But I just always try to temper that a little bit by pointing out the fact that, the few, in effect, can be greater than the many. And that means, when you go to a networking event, the goal is not necessarily to make sure that you deliver, 50 business cards to 50 different contacts, but perhaps you didn't really leave a lasting impression on any individual contact. It can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, to really engage with that select number of individuals and start to build that relationship and that rapport so that you stand out with those individuals. So obviously we want to construct very large networks of opportunities for ourselves, but don't lose sight of the fact that, establishing, relationships, deeper relationships is beneficial. Hey, Lisa, next slide. One of the common concerns or, objections we have when you're kind of getting focused around networking is, I don't have the time to network. And, it'd be easy for me to say, hey, you need to make it a priority. But the reality is we probably all have more priorities than we have time, right? So this is always a challenge. But I wanted to just point out that, networking opportunities, are all around us. They happen all the time. And yet that's a common theme that you're going to hear both through, you heard it through Erin, you'll hear it, also through Sam. You can find networking opportunities in your neighborhood, in your community, through various family activities that you engage in. Again, for me personally, the community events and volunteers was really a big source of my network. Years ago, when my kids were getting involved in sports, like a lot of dads, you get involved at the coaching level and you start to engage that way. Well, I went the level further where I became part of, the organization itself that was running those youth events. And, all of a sudden I was dealing with, not the 8 or 10 parents on the team, but I was dealing with hundreds of families within our neighborhoods and working with them. And it really, became a great, first of all, enjoyment and passion of mine, but it also really opened the door to today, I would say, a significant portion of my LinkedIn network really are community contacts. And, I've helped in terms of introducing some of those members into Oracle, and also they've helped me in various pursuits as well. So again, look at, every interaction is again, potentially a networking opportunity. So don't overlook what you can do in your communities, as well as kind of the formalized career networking events that are out there. Next, Lisa. All right, so my task today was to talk about skills, networking skills. And I wanted to jump into the next couple slides into that arena. The first thing you see is there's really quite a significant list of skills that I've put on this slide, and I don't want that to be intimidating in any way or manner. The point being is that there's a variety of skills that we all, individually, where we all shine. Some of us are more humorous than others. Some of us are stronger communicators than others. And really, you can rely on various skills to help your efforts in networking. There are a couple that I think really stand out. When I was doing some research here and kind of visiting all of the different, websites that talk about networking, and everyone has their own individual list of skills. And, the one that comes to the top of the list in almost all instances is active listening. So I'm going to hold off on that one because I got a couple slides to talk about active listening. That's one of the key takeaways from my session, portion of this session here today. So we're going to focus on that in just a few minutes. So let's just back burner that for now. Some of the other networking skills that are important, obviously, are communication. Communication is both verbal and nonverbal. From a verbal perspective, communication, really shows confidence, right? Your ability to articulate, the ability to talk at the right, with a strong tone and level in your voice. Those are all, elements of verbal communication that help when you're out meeting people for the first time in these kind of group settings. Nonverbal communication is just as important. How we act, how we stand, how we relate to the other individuals is important. And it's also very important to interpret their nonverbal communications signals as well. So if I'm networking and I'm having a conversation with an individual and I interpret maybe their interest might be waning a little bit, that might be a good opportunity for me to either change the focus of the discussion or perhaps ask a question, get them to re-engage. So, stay alert to nonverbal communication as much as kind of the verbal communication in your networking efforts. And then there's a lot of social skills that we can apply, being positive, showing empathy, providing humor. Those are all, again, ways in which we build rapport and help us establish the relationship. The last two networking skills really get at the concept that, networking, is work. Okay, it's not always easy, and so it requires focus. It requires that, as Erin was pointing out, you're prepared. You have the elevator pitch. You know the types of roles that you're interested in, right? You're doing your diligence to get to really move this forward. And then second, it takes resilience, and I put resilience right up there with active listening. It's not always the case that our efforts are going to be successful at first, right? And so, hence the diagram there of the flower growing through, the crack in the concrete. It's not always easy, but showing that level of resilience in essence, can help us in our networking efforts. So those are many of the skills that I think you need in terms of to be most successful networking-wise. So let's shift gears. Let's talk active listening. As I mentioned, this is really, top of the list. I think that, probably somewhere along the line, we've heard about the concept of active listening, but just to kind of refresh, this is all about making sure that when you're in a discussion, you're maintaining eye contact. Your nonverbal communications, you're nodding, you're not interrupting the individual that you're engaged with. And then probably most important about active listening is your ability to interact, to respond. It's sometimes, especially when we're in a group setting and there's 4 or 5 individuals, and maybe perhaps, we may not be the most socially aggressive individual in the group. It's easier to kind of withdraw and fall back. And really what we want to do is, if that's an individual we want to engage with, we want to respond. We want to repeat their key points at a minimum. We want to formulate questions and show that we're definitely engaged in the conversation. And there's an example just showing the fact that, hey, if someone's talking to you about how excited they are about a new product, that's a great opportunity. Take advantage of those opportunities to engage and ask questions. We don't need to be the expert when we're networking. We may not know all of what that individual is talking about from their company's perspective or their product's perspective. So it's easy enough to just, hey, can you clarify for me? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? It just shows your interest, and that's a key element of engaging in these networking relationships. And the last thing I just want to call attention to on this slide is, in some respects, today, what we're doing is a lot of, due to our situation around COVID, we do a lot of Zoom-based networking these days. And, I notice sometimes we myself and other individuals, you forget that the camera's on. You forget that the red light is on, right? And so you need to make sure that when you're networking and you're perhaps conducting that first interview, that you recognize you're on, and you need to carry these same principles, in this video world that you do when you're having that opportunity to have a one-on-one direct relationship. Okay, Lisa, next slide. So the last slide that I wanted to talk about was just, we talked about active listening and questions. What are some of the types of questions or categories or areas that you should be prepared to have ready? Conversation starters are great, right? I know for me personally, this is the biggest challenge. This is not my strongest skill, right? Working a room, and so having some of those types of questions, at the ready. Just tell me a little bit about what your role is at, company XYZ, or how did you get into this profession? I've always had interest in it, right? So those are ways to get individuals talking. And so having several of those types of conversation starters at the ready is an opportunity to kind of break the ice and begin the discussion. And then once you've done that and you've got the conversation going, you want to start to transition into your interests. Does your company offer internships? Or how would someone get their foot in the door at your company? These are all ways to start to navigate the conversation, into the opportunities that you're looking for. And then also, don't be afraid to, change the scope from kind of that job, company, role discussion into, outside of work. What are the types of activities that you enjoy doing? Look for opportunities, to bond. Most people have interests or hobbies that might align to an area that you have, or something that you have interest in learning more about. And that tends to be, in a lot of times at a networking event, some of the most memorable discussions for individuals. And then finally, in sales, we used to call this, you got to get the close, right? Which is, you don't want to walk out of the networking event with by just handing off your business card, because at that point, the other individual is in control of contacting you. And so you need to talk about, what's the best way for me to get in touch or follow up with you. You want to show your interest, express your interest. And someone may just come back and say, hey, just connect with me on LinkedIn and you can use that vehicle, right? So you've got to have that ability to let them know that you're interested and, you're showing interest in understanding the best way to work with them. So those are just some examples of questions that I would consider kind of thinking through as you attend or approach networking events. Lisa? So I just had a couple different resources for you that kind of align. The questions that you just saw come from a great document that I found, which is 47 great questions to ask for a networking event. I'd say there's maybe 25 great ones, but there's 47 questions there. And I think that, you've got to make them work for yourself. I think the top networking skills you should have is kind of a little deeper dive into what I was touching upon. I think it's always a great refresher to kind of just hit upon those before you walk into an event, just kind of get yourself, in the mindset of what you need to do in that event. And so hopefully you found this of help to you. That completes my section. I'm going to turn it over to Samantha Barber from our team. Samantha is a customer success specialist. She's been with Oracle for 20 years, where she's had the ability to work with a variety of different groups here at Oracle. And then among the many facets of her current job that she really enjoys are mentoring others and engaging with customers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sam.
Thanks, Steve. So we've taken almost 45 minutes of learning a lot of great and interesting ways to, increase and grow your network. So what we thought we'd do is we could use real life examples of situations that you might find yourself in today. I know that a lot of us on the phone right now have found ourselves in these situations when it comes to our career. So this example is a professional called Kayla, and she is interested in advancing her career. So Kayla works at a bank and she really wants to become a bank teller. So here are some examples of things that Kayla did in approaching the advancement of her career at the bank. So first thing Kayla did was she used LinkedIn. So LinkedIn gives her the opportunity to search through her network of people she's linked in with to really get an idea of who's out there in her network that actually is today a teller. And not only can you search on people that you're linked into, but then you might find there might be people that your friends or your network already is linked to that are tellers as well. So it's a very powerful tool to use when looking into advancing your career to that next step or that next position within your company. So once Kayla found that she did indeed have some tellers in her network, she arranged for an informational interview. So this is a really great example. In fact, Erin talked about the fact that, this might be your opportunity to really learn about the role. So is it indeed something you do want to advance to? And so doing that by, going through your informational interview and really understanding more about that position will allow you to really get a better idea of the skills you currently have and how you can apply those to the new role. Shadowing a teller at her current bank. So she's really tight with one of the tellers. She goes to lunch all the time with this particular teller. So she's asked to be able to shadow her for a day. Ask lots of questions. What do you like about your role? What do you not like about it? To really get a better idea of how she can understand more about the day in and day out activities of being a teller at a bank. Another networking activity that Kayla used was a resume review. So she has a really good friend that is in this 5K running club that she's joined, and she's been in for many years. So she requested a reciprocating resume review. So she said to her friend, hey, I'd love if you could take a quick look at my resume and see what you think, and I will do the same for you. And so, you know, I mentioned a 5K running club. This could be any kind of social or, you know, group that you might be in. You know, I actually have a lot of contacts in my network that I've met at a dog park. I have 2 dogs. And if you've ever been to a dog park, you know, people just go stand in a circle and you see them probably once a day or once a week, and you're all sitting around talking, and you learn more about people. And I've learned, you know, what other careers people have that I've met at the dog park, and tapped into that as my network as well throughout the years of advancing my career. Another thing Kayla did was she joined a local professional women's coffee group, and that she found on Meetup. So I don't know if any of you have ever checked that out, but Meetup is a really great tool online to be able to find out different groups that are within your local community that you can meet up with. And this one happened to be a women's coffee meetup that she can actually join once a week, where everybody meets up and talks about different activities and professional activities that they approach each week. So that is an example of Kayla. A couple of things I wanted to pull out. If you look to the right of this, you know, these are some of those skills that Steve talked about. So during the shadowing activity that Kayla performed, she was actively listening, also building rapport during that informational interview. And also too, a lot of these things aren't easy to do. So you might have to step out of your comfort zone really to be able to perform a lot of these networking techniques that we're talking about. So next slide, Lisa. And here's another example. This is a little bit different. This is a professional named Monica, and she's kind of at a crossroads when it comes to her career. She's contemplating a new career. So she has a large network that she is growing, but she's also tapping into her old network. So while, you know, a lot of those networks might be related to her current career, she can tap into her old network for, you know, types of things such as informational interviews, that type of thing. But one of the key techniques or networking activities that Monica performed was a recommendation for a colleague on LinkedIn. So she went to LinkedIn and made recommendations. So I don't know if anybody out there has done this before, but it's a really great opportunity for you to build up one of your colleagues, and then they might reciprocate as well. They will make a recommendation for you, and that's going to help you as well when it comes to, you know, networking and advancing your career and maybe looking into a new career choice. So when it comes to a career choice, I kind of threw in here something that Monica did, that is a career skills matcher website. So these are, you can find these very easily if you search, if you Google it. This helps you really get a better understanding of what those skills are that are required for a new career choice. And what that's going to do is it's going to help you when you're building your elevator pitch about yourself, to really know what the skills are that are required for this new career choice. And that's something Erin talked about. So that's something that Monica did. She built her elevator pitch. So now when she goes to local career fairs or goes to career centers, she really has that, you know, 20-second, you know, 30-second career elevator pitch that she has down. So when she's talking to people that she's networking with, she really has a really good understanding of how she can, you know, build herself and really show, you know, the network that she's looking into regarding her new career choice. So another thing that Monica did was she found a mentor. So she, in her network, she tapped into it and really got a understanding of the different networking contacts that she has for this new career choice that she's looking into. And she found a mentor. And then more importantly, she became a mentor because she already has a lot of great skills when it comes to her current career. So she volunteered to become a mentor for someone else. Not only that, she also volunteered to speak at a career center. So again, she has already a lot of great skills that she can share with others. And that enables her, again, to grow her network by volunteering at these career fairs or career centers to be able to speak on her career. And then again, I mentioned career fairs multiple times that, you know, these are the opportunity for her to use her elevator pitch and also make these meaningful connections. Next slide, Lisa. So these are just a couple of resources of some of the things I mentioned in these case studies that we just talked about. A lot of these are things that I pulled out from the skills and also from some of the techniques that Erin talked about. So more importantly, if you're looking for career fairs in your community, you can very easily go to national career fairs and do a search, and it will focus specifically in your community where you might be able to find some of these. A lot of, again, we all talked a little bit about COVID, you know, how that's changed, how a lot of these career fairs and you know, career fairs in the career center, for instance, and different ways we can be mentoring. So a lot of that is going to be done over Zoom. So you'll find that when you're looking through and looking for local career fairs that are happening in your area. And then again, the social platforms, a lot of those things Erin mentioned as well. So LinkedIn, as well as Meetup, we highly encourage you to use that to find some local networking opportunities. So then in summary, these are just some things kind of we pulled out that we want you to leave with. When you're doing your resume, it's important to make sure that you are looking at that job description for the job that you're seeking, and make sure you pull out those keywords and make sure that you are building that into your resume skills and your experience as you move through your advancement of your career. And then I mentioned the recommendations on LinkedIn. I think that is a huge thing, is to be able to make those recommendations and use that recommendation feature on LinkedIn to give props to a lot of the people that you've worked with in the past. And, you know, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to do the same for you. They will make those recommendations for you as well. And so active listening, Steve talked a lot about that. And then following up. I mean, I can't tell you how important that is to follow up. If you've made a meaningful connection with a contact, follow it up with something, and then make it meaningful. Like, you know, you remember that they were going to their brother's wedding, you know, mention that, you know, make it more meaningful and personal. And so it could be a text, it could be a note, it could be email, it could be anything. So it's important to follow up. So next slide. All right, we thank you very much for your time, and we wish you good luck on your journey on your career path.